Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Jam-packed action ahead. We got the biggest questions ahead of week 7 and need to break down, a few, I guess you could call them important news storylines that broke on an eventful Tuesday. So joining me on this edition of the Fantasy Life Show, as always, Dwain, The Rock McFarland, Chris, the Sensei Storm Chaser Allen. Dwain, eventful Tuesday, man. This is our 4th time potting in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ian, I thought we might get to do another, but you said no to the emergency Cam Akers trade podcast. You decided you didn't want to do that because you're really not committed to our craft. But we had a chance to do 3 emergency podcasts yesterday. I don't know what's wrong with you.
I let the folks down, Dwain. We're just going to have to watch the film and get better on that one. Chris, we are back in the saddle again, my friend. How's it going?
I'm doing well, and I was actually kind of upset I didn't get the Cam Akers emergency podcast. If I'm going to get as much in-depth analysis as y'all are going to provide on a day-by-day basis, or hour-by-hour, if we're talking about yesterday specifically, you guys couldn't hit the trifecta and go for Cam Akers. I'm with Dwain on this one, man. Where's the heart at, man? I thought we were out here grinding for the people.
All right, I was going to let it go, but pull up the freaking phone, Dwain. You know we proposed the Cam Akers emergency pod, and it wasn't you, my friend. So, all right, guys, you know what? We're going to throw the show sheet out and just talk Cam Akers for the next 50 minutes here, so stay tuned. First, though, a quick word on our, Fantasy Life Plus product. Fantasy Life Plus, our premium product over here at Fantasy Life, where we're just trying to help you get one step closer to achieving that fantasy football championship glory. Our full consensus rankings, Dwain's utilization tool suite, start sit tools, waiver wire help, all that and so much more. Not trying to break your bank account. Tier 1 package is coming in at just about $40 per year. Tier 2 under $10 per month. Truly just a great day to try to be that much better at fantasy football. So Fantasy Life Plus, check it out. All right, guys, again, in addition to that blockbuster Cam Akers trade, we actually had a long-time stud, multi-time All-Pro, wide receiver Davante Adams traded from the Raiders to the New York Jets, seemingly just hours after the Jets obviously had that painful Monday night loss to the Bills. So, Dwain, while Davante, maybe not again in his prime of primes, certainly still a big-time upgrade for this Aaron Rodgers-led offense.
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at the past, that we've seen with Adams and Rodgers, we clearly know that they have a connection. So we have some concerns that Davante Adams is an aging player, but the primary thing that we look at, Ian, for these wide receivers when we're thinking about their talent profile and where they are in their career really comes down to their target share. And he was still earning targets at a high level last year. Now, his metrics came down against man coverage, which can be a leading indicator that players are starting to fall off based on some research I did this last offseason. But it's not something that's 100% predictive. Some of it can also be tied to your quarterback. So if you're playing with, Aiden O'Connell last year and Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah, your yards per route run against man coverage might come down because maybe your quarterback isn't as accurate. Maybe your quarterback isn't getting you the ball when you're open. Maybe the timing is off between the two of you. So I think those are things that we will see get ironed out with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. I don't know that we'll see it immediately, but I look at Adams the rest of the way, Ian, as a mid-range wide receiver. 2, the big question is, what does this do to Mr. Garrett Wilson?
Chris, thoughts on the impact? Because, again, Davante obviously going to be that number 1 with his longtime BFF Aaron Rodgers. Mike Williams could be traded. We did get that report going out. Shout out Jordan Schultz, by the way, really breaking a lot of good news lately. So, again, probably 3 wide receiver sets of Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Allen Lazard. Do you expect Garrett to at least, come close to continuing to provide something close to wide receiver 2 production?
I would think so, because let's go back to what does it take in order for a player to earn a target. And I know, Dwain, you've harped on this on the show beforehand. A player needs to be talented in order to do that. And we know Garrett Wilson has the requisite talent in order to continue earning targets from Aaron Rodgers. But it's just more along the lines of where are those targets going to come? Because we've seen Allen Lazard mix in the red zone, more deep shots to some of the other guys. We saw Lazard getting some deep shots yesterday, like Mike Williams. Some of those might go to continue to go to Garrett Wilson. But this is all the offense should run a bit more efficiently now, with Davante Adams in the fold. This is a team that was passing at one of the highest rates in the league on early downs in order to generate the offense needed in order to move the ball down the field. But they were 20th in passing success rate on early downs and also 20th in terms of yards gained on early downs as well. this is where Davante Adams can help out. Because if Garrett Wilson hasn't been at least as used on some of those layup targets that we've noted on the show beforehand, like hasn't been targeted as much from the interior portion. That's been Allen Lazard, Tyler Conklin, some of those guys. I mean, if Davante Adams can still create at least some level of separation that will keep them ahead of the sticks, or at least putting them in like manageable type situations once they get into 3rd and 4th downs, I mean, that's where I can see like Davante Adams providing the most impact. And then afterwards, I mean, I've seen the comparisons tossed out there, and I'm not really ready to put them on this level. But I mean, we've seen Justin Jefferson, like Jordan Addison, like work out well together. We've seen T. Higgins, Jamar Chase work out well together. I mean, 2 wide receivers can coexist in a pass-friendly like type of offense. And with as much as Aaron Rodgers has been like able to sling it so far through 6 weeks, I'm not as concerned about Garrett Wilson dropping into like the wide receiver 3 tier. And I'm definitely not one of those people out there saying that Allen Lazard is a better option for them over Garrett Wilson, which is absolutely ridiculous at this point. So no, I think Garrett Wilson is still like the wide receiver 2 conversation for sure. Davante Adams is a baller, but yeah, I'm hoping that at least the offense will be a bit more efficient now with Adams there.
To Chris's point, I was trying to find the exact number, but you guys have to take my word for it. I do believe it's about 4.1 or maybe in the high 3s number of teammates that both finish as top 24 wide receivers in the same season. So certainly something that happens far more often than the RBs. And again, when we are dealing with plenty of talented individuals who are healthy, by the way. Adam Schefter confirms, guys, get this. Davante Adams' hamstring injury apparently really wasn't that big of a deal. He wasn't hurt the whole time.
Who knew?
Who could have seen this coming? Oh, my God. Adam Schefter again confirmed that he should be playing Week 7 in that Sunday night matchup against the Steelers. So not the easiest, kickoff for the New York Jets, but really nice schedule coming up after that, and hopefully plenty of fantasy points on the way. Guys, the other big trade, the third big trade of the day, though, has to be the Browns shipping Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen got a wide receiver 1. Dwain, didn't matter that he didn't have a wide receiver 1 in the first 3 weeks. Now it does. Talk about what Cooper brings to this Buffalo Bills offense.
It's funny how reality sets in, like after opponents have a chance to study you and figure out what you want to do. And also you had Khalil Shakir hurt, so that definitely hurt the Buffalo Bills as well. He's really been their best player on offense besides James Cook and Josh Allen. Those 2 guys have been really good as well. But yeah, looking at this trade for Amari Cooper, this is really big for Josh Allen. I think this unlocks that top QB finish overall. I don't expect this team to suddenly turn into, a pass-first team. Joe Brady's shown us that he wants to be a balanced play caller. He even wants to, potentially lean more to the run. But I do think a lot of that comes back to who you have on offense. And I still want to give Joe Brady some type of credit for actually crafting, an offense that's going to be about the players that he has and about the game plan that he needs to, really put together to beat whatever opponent is across from him. And Amari Cooper gives them a wide receiver 1. Ian, I know you did some good research on it. I think Amari Cooper graded like absolute last in the ESPN advanced metrics, which looks at the catch rate. It also looks at a player's yards after the catch, and then it looks at their separation. Those 3 things come together. It's something we really like to look at. The one thing I've seen with those types of data points, and this isn't knocking them, is it really is hard to separate wide receiver play from the quarterback play, because I went back and watched every play for Amari, and a lot of these plays, there aren't any opportunities to get yak because the throw is late and it's behind Amari Cooper. He's having to slow down. He's having to drop down and catch wide open slant passes on his knees. Well, you can't get yak even though you've got space from defenders because of where your quarterback placed the ball. And then the same thing was really going on with these drops. I charted potentially 14 plays, if you're being generous, that you could have called drops, meaning Amari got a hand on it, or it was within his range where he could have had a hand on it, and only 3 of them I actually placed on Amari. There were a couple that I put just a question mark by. Okay, could be Deshaun, could be Amari, but when you're getting targeted a lot, Ian, you've talked about it, you're going to have drops, period. But show me a player with a low catchable target rate, which Amari has. Only 60% of his passes have been catchable, and for his average depth of target, that's well below the NFL average. Show me a player with a low catchable target rate, and they're going to have a high drop rate. The 2 things are just very connected. Typically, when you see an uncatchable target rate, that also means you're getting more inaccurate passes, that are thrown to the wide receiver as well. And that turns those things into really tough plays instead of routine plays. And the big takeaway for me on Amari, whenever I was watching this, was just looking at the fact that, man, there were massive chunk plays left on the field, left and right. There were 2 or 3 potential touchdowns left on the field that Deshaun Watson didn't hit him on or had a bad throw on. And then also just looking at the fact that, again, Josh Allen right now he doesn't have just someone he can just lock into and say he can go to. When I watch this film, man, intermediate Amari, underneath Amari, getting open on slants, dig routes, all those sort of things, really good. If you're going to ask Amari to line up outside and go get deep, I don't know that he has that gear anymore. If you let him set things up, though, I saw a sluggo route that got missed against the Cowboys that should have been a freaking touchdown. I mean, he totally cooked. I can't remember which Cowboys corner it was. But if you let him start from the slot, you let him start his route inside and then work back outside into the deeper parts of the field, he still has that in his game. So if Joe Brady sees all this, and he knows way more than me, and he actually uses Amari Cooper the right way, I think we have a wide receiver 2 on our hands. And I think there is potential upside for a wide receiver 1. I'm not going to come out and say it's wide receiver 1, but in the simplest terms, how long, guys, have we been sitting here and anytime we talk about any trade or any wide receiver getting signed, we're like, man, what if they went to Kansas City or the Bills? Now we have Amari Cooper with Josh Allen. All I know is that's a major upgrade over Deshaun Watson, even if they want to keep running the ball.
Yeah.
Chris, do you agree? Josh Allen better than Deshaun Watson?
I mean, that's man, I'd have to go back and check the tape on that. What? No, we all know that that's the case. I think the biggest thing and to Dwayne's point, is being able to hit more wide receivers on those intermediate crossers. I mean, we've seen Josh Allen continue to move the pocket, drift towards the sideline, and then flick the ball down the field. And while that's typically been to guys like Khalil Shakir, we can't really expect the same out of Mac Hollins or not MVS now that he's out of there. But still, I think that's where Amari Cooper can shine the best in this passing offense. We've seen the better parts or the more efficient parts of their passing game when Allen's ADOT has been more in the intermediate parts of the field. That was in weeks 1 through 3. And without Khalil Shakir on there, he's reverted back to that 2021, 2022 Josh Allen where he's passing the ball downfield, over a 10-yard passing average depth of target. And he's been a little bit more inaccurate. So now with a guy that we know can at least generate some level of separation on those intermediate routes, that could at least allow him to continue to connect with guys like Khalil Shakir. We'll see if Dalton Kincaid can also get mixed in there as well. Hopefully we saw some flashes of that just this past week. But I think that allows the offense to be more efficient, not more pass happy to Dwayne's point, but just allowing them to continue to work those middle parts of the field and keep the offense moving so that we can get more of our playmakers involved.
Certainly a massive real life upgrade at a minimum. And yeah, I think all of you 2 and 4 fantasy squads hoping to get a little bit more out of Amari Cooper at a minimum, guys, should be safely back in that starting lineup. So to Dwayne's point, tons of missed opportunities left out there on the field, most unrealized air yards in the NFL for Amari Cooper. And as defined folks at FTN Fantasy have pointed out, 455 uncatchable air yards. I will say, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing where we look at the uncatchable air yards and it's Amari Cooper at the top and saying, oh my God, yeah, Watson, horrible. And you go down the list, Garrett Wilson and Terry McLaurin are also top 5, top 6. I don't quite hear us, throwing Rodgers and, Jaden Daniels under the bus in the same way. That said, again, certainly plenty of missed opportunities that you would like to think going to be certainly put on a more silver platter for him now in Buffalo. So great day to be an Amari Cooper fantasy manager. Guys, we did have a couple other storylines, but again, those were the big ones. Texans, again, as all jokes aside, they actually did trade running back Cam Akers to the Vikings, late round pick swap. Second time in freaking a year at this point that Akers has been traded to the Vikings. Also have Saints wide receivers Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed still not practicing with a concussion and knee injury respectively. Not looking good for Thursday night. And also the Giants might have lost their left tackle Andrew Thomas with a foot injury for the season. Jordan Schultz says it most likely will be out for the season. They're just still determining if he's going to need surgery or not. So guys, that was the news. And now it's time for a brand new segment presented by Knockaround. We are throwing shade. Get those shades on, fellas, because we got some shade to throw, specifically at the Indianapolis Colts. Dwayne, can we get a doctor there? And if we can't get a doctor there, can we at least get someone to tell us maybe what they're thinking? Because seeing Anthony Richardson become that late Sunday morning scratch and seeing Michael Pittman going from an IR candidate to playing his usual role on Sunday, pretty frustrating, man.
Yeah, man, the Michael Pittman saga is the one that really freaking got me. Went from being someone that might go on IR, we might not see for 4 weeks, guys, to suddenly on Friday night, it looks like he's going to play. He's looking a lot better. He came out, I put the tweet out there that maybe he went to a healing convention, or maybe they had the healing doctor come in, the night before, or the preacher or whatever. But apparently, Michael Pittman got some of that. But yeah, man, it's so frustrating. So now we have a big thing this week, Ian. Is Jonathan Taylor going to play, and can we really trust anything coming out of Indianapolis?
Chris, it really has been rough. Again, the Michael Pittman one, to go from is this guy going to play football again this season to him literally returning to practice the next day and playing, pretty frustrating, man. But also, how about that Anthony Richardson stuff? Like, you can't do we actually believe Richardson, they didn't know if he was going to play before Sunday? Because as much as you can call it a competitive advantage, like when you are a league and you can't put on a football game without seeing one gambling or fantasy related ad after another, I feel like there is somewhat of an obligation to be more upfront about this type of stuff.
Well, and I'll throw this one out there. Like, was Anthony Richardson starting last week, like, or at least having that question out there, a competitive advantage? Joe Flacco was playing better than him like just a week prior. I mean, from a passing standpoint, I know they didn't wind up winning, but still, it's like, okay, like we know Joe Flacco can connect with whether it's Josh Downs, whether it was Michael Pittman, whether it was, I mean, even Alec Pierce downfield, like he was accessing all levels of the field. So it's like, oh yeah, you could say Anthony Richardson was going to play, but it's like if we wanted to continue having some of the pass catchers involved, like on our fantasy rosters, I would have preferred Flacco to be in there anyway. So I'm with you. I wish they would just been more, I guess, I don't know, upfront or whatever, like along, like at least regarding where Anthony Richardson's at, because now even there's a general question about if you like how he's going to play once he gets back out on the field this week. So yeah, I'm with you. Like just let's have a bit more transparency if we can. But I get it. You know, teams aren't always going to let all their cards out. But yeah, if we could get a bit more clarity, that'd be nice.
I mean, at this point, Dwain, like, again, I'm being a little bit of a dickhead here, but we are throwing shade, okay? I mean, when we're talking about like evaluating an injured player, what are we doing even trusting some of these reports coming out of the team? I feel like we're better off just following, you know, the practice participation and listening what doctors have to say, whether it was McCaffrey, whether it was, James Cook this last Monday night. I mean, when is the last time that we've actually gotten, you know, a quote unquote insider breaking news that wasn't them just directly ripping it off the team account?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten it in the past, but to your point, it's not from one of the big box insiders. It's usually coming from, you know, a beat reporter or something like that. And I can't remember where this one initially broke from last week. And I also don't know the answer to your question. Like, it's interesting to think through. I know there have been times when we've been tipped off where it has actually worked well. But I think we just need to kind of, it's one of those things where you've kind of got to balance it out, is what I would say. We probably should never be 100% all in on any piece of information, you know, so you just kind of got to think through, okay, there's a chance this thing goes wrong. I know that, Ian, you and I, we had Anthony Richardson. We thought he was going to be back. Our other quarterback was Trevor Lawrence playing in the, in the early London game. And I looked up and I was like, yeah, whoops. Our backup quarterback already played. So that's on us. So in those situations, what I would say is, you know, the lesson here is we should have just played Trevor Lawrence, especially considering we haven't seen the huge ceiling from Anthony Richardson that we thought we might get earlier in the year. Yeah, we've gotten that rushing floor. We know he can be a mid-range QB1. We probably should have just played Trevor Lawrence and called it a day.
And yeah, and look, with the James Cook injury, we knew he was questionable. We knew he was banged up. You should have had, you know, an emergency plan on Monday. I just struggle to see like what the point of these insiders are. You heard Schefter when Waj retired. I mean, they're in the shower looking at their phone. Like, he made it sound like it was the hardest life imaginable. And it is a grind. I get it. But like, if you're doing all that, could we maybe get some information? No. Not me either, but like, could we get information that isn't literally public knowledge? Hit the Colts account with the retweet instead of just copy pasting their injury report one of these days. So I don't know. Guys, that's going to conclude throwing shade. That's something that we're going to do here again once a week or so. Just had to get that off our chest. But if you did notice, we are rocking these ever fresh knockaround sunglasses. I do have the Colts ones on, and yeah, I mean, I actually now have one for all 32 teams, so I will not be buying sunglasses for the foreseeable future. But if I did, I would go to Knockaround anyway, because they are pretty freaking great and also affordable. Because guys, if you do go to knockaround.com and pick your new go-to pair of polarized shades for less than $50, you'll find 25 frame styles and dozens of colors, and you're guaranteed to find sunglasses that both look good and protect your eyes with full UV 400 protection. And be sure to check out Knockaround's officially licensed NFL collection so you can rep your team all week long and hopefully all the way through the playoffs. Visit knockaround.com and use code LIFE for free shipping on your order. All right, fellas. As much as I would love to wear sunglasses every second of every day, time to get our game faces back on and go through some of the biggest fantasy questions ahead of week 7. So again, broke down the Adams and Cooper's trade, but the other really big news item was actually the declaration that Pittsburgh apparently going back to Russell Wilson, Dwayne. Now, not a given. We did have Mike Tomlin playing it close to the vest, but per Tom Pelissero, it does seem like that, we are going to see basically Russell Wilson not only get first team reps in practice, but also start Sunday night against the Jets. So certainly a thing that, seeing Russell Wilson under center should be good news for George Pickens and the running backs, just by the difference of a, scrambler versus more of a pocket passer. But overall thoughts on the QB switch, Dwayne?
Yeah, you just hit it. I mean, you're going to have less of those dropbacks turn into scrambles. So that means a couple of extra passing plays per game, 1 or 2 of which could go to George Pickens. But targets really haven't been the problem from like a target share perspective, Ian. I think really to unlock George Pickens, you need an offense that can actually run more plays. You need an offense that is not going to be like one of the most run-heavy offenses in the entire NFL. And while some of those dropbacks won't turn to scrambles, I still think Arthur Smith has shown us when he has a questionable quarterback, especially, and Russell Wilson, guys, he is a questionable quarterback. Make no doubt about it. This man is a questionable quarterback at this point in his career. Arthur Smith wants to shell up. Mike Tomlin also wants to shell up. They do not want to try to play aggressive on offense. They do not want to try and throw a bunch of passes. The old Steelers offense we once knew with Ben Roethlisberger, that is long gone. So I don't see this being a massive upgrade for anyone involved. In fact, I think there's a little bit of downside here, Ian. We haven't seen the Russell Wilson magic in a very long time, and I think you could argue that the change in the way defenses are playing in the NFL maybe didn't hit anyone harder than it hit Russell Wilson, because what did he love to do? He was a magician whenever you gave him single coverage and he would hit that deep crosser to Tyler Lockett and just drop it right in the bucket. It didn't matter. The DB could be 6'10", and he'll drop it in the bucket to a dude that's 5'8". So big hat tip to Russ, but those are gone. Those plays are now gone in the NFL because of the way, not just the too high, but how deep they're playing the single high safety whenever they rotate back to, a 3 high look. So the magic that Russ once had, I don't think we're going to get. And I do worry about Russ. He's not really the kind of guy, in my opinion, that just wants to throw the ball up in the intermediate and in the short passing game to a guy like George Pickens. So I'm not so sure that this is even going to be an upgrade for Pickens, man. I really want it to be, because I when I look at the target share, I look at Pickens' ability, I get it, guys. He loafs and he does things that really piss the Steelers fans off. And I can totally understand that. But we know that Pickens is a talented player. So, sure, there's a chance that this could unlock more for George Pickens. But honestly, I see this as neutral.
Now, with Russ, again, Dwayne, you mentioned it. This dude's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, and deservedly so. Yeah. Freaking decade of him being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But, Chris, we are talking about the year 2024, and, hey, I'll give Russ credit. 26 passing touchdowns in 15 games last year. Wasn't like that Broncos offense was overflowing with highly, just lethal machines at pass catcher. But when you do look at the Steelers offense, again, we like George Pickens. I don't even think half the Steelers fan base particularly does. We don't care about literally any other pass catcher here. The offensive line, it was not great going into the year. Now they're really injured. I mean, they literally asked Mike Tomlin in the press conference, do you think Russ has the ability to escape the rush the way Justin Fields did against the Raiders? And Tomlin himself said, no, he does not. So, Chris, from your perspective, man, again, based on this offense, is Russ really the answer?
I just don't see how he is the answer. And just a real quick aside, now I'm just picturing like a 6'10" corner out there after Dwayne said it. It's like somebody I don't know, rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo, just out there just swatting pass attempts down, or that's the only thing that stuck in my mind. But to your question,
if Mutombo could cover Tyler Lockett, that would be the greatest combination of size and agility and speed we've ever seen on the planet.
Him versus Tank Dell, and then afterwards getting him just just a quick not in my house.
Pressing him up the line.
Oh yeah, but I just don't see how you can go away from Fields. Now I get the losses are starting to stack up for the Steelers, so I understand that. But you are getting the best out of Justin Fields as a passer so far. From can he access the middle parts of the field, which has been something of an issue for him in the earlier parts of his tenure with the Bears, to seeing him now being one of the more efficient passers when it comes to middle of the field passing, which from an efficiency standpoint, that's where passers are going right now in order to unlock yards after the catch, so on and so so forth. I mean, he's 11th in EPA per dropback, like on middle of the field targets, like so far through 6 weeks of play. And now, while they haven't been passing there as much as other teams have been so far, I mean, we're still like, he's also been able to limit negative plays. Like you guys were just talking about, like how much is he going to be under pressure so far? I mean, he was under pressure on like over 60% of his dropbacks just this past week. 0 interceptions so far on pass attempts, like when he's under duress. And now can we really expect like Russell Wilson to be that type of guy, like be that type of passer at this point in his career? One, he can't create like once he's under fire, like, and he has to pass out of structure. And two, we've seen Justin Fields be even more explosive, like as a rusher, like when he goes to scramble. I mean, throughout the entirety of both of their, like over the last like 3 years, like so when Justin Fields like came into the league and to this point right now, Fields has been the more efficient scrambler, like when like put in those types of situations versus Russ, and also he's been the better passer as well. So it's just like we've now got like the Jets coming up like this week, and the Giants Giants the week after. Like we know what like the type of pressure like they can create like for opposing quarterbacks. So we just saw the Giants like light up Joe Burrow and company just this past week. I have like serious concerns like for this Pittsburgh passing game should they make the switch, because Justin Fields, he's been playing well. So going back to Russell Wilson, or going to Russell Wilson, I guess, like it just seems like an odd move at this point.
Like, look, I've been obviously Ohio State diehard. I'm in Fields' corner over the years, and he's disappointed. You can call him a bust. He has not lived up to the expectations. He is not a great passing quarterback, but have we watched Russell Wilson over the last year or two? Like, that's my problem. If you want to say that the passing game goes from a 5 to a 6 with Russ under center, that's fine. But then losing that dynamic ability you get from Fields in the run game, you know, I'm not Arthur Smith, I'm not Mike Tomlin, but to me, I would stick with Justin Fields. And even the passing work, guys, has not been bad. 13th in completion percentage over expected. That's actually ahead of CJ Stroud and Josh Allen. EPA per dropback is 16th, ahead of Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Like, interesting standard I feel like Fields is being held to. We will see what happens. But yeah, sadly, I think the answer to most start-sit questions involving Steelers players moving forward probably going to continue to be no. So again, we'll see. Maybe I have to eat my words and Russell Wilson is the answer. But if I had to guess, guys, kind of the major storyline here is maybe the Steelers shouldn't have entered the season, but with the quarterback battle between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Just saying. All right, let's talk about some injuries now, because lordy, are there a ton of them. And at first, we're going to go through some of the wide receivers. So, guys, Thursday night clash between two titans of the NFL and the Saints and Broncos. Sadly, not going to see New Orleans having probably their top 2 wide receivers, Rashid Shaheed with a knee and Chris Olave with a concussion. Both of them have started off the week with back-to-back DMPs. So, Chris, you went off the rails on our Monday episode talking up some bub memes. Are you still feeling good?
I'm still feeling good, just from a volume standpoint, but I do think that like means at least has the opportunity to come through like for fantasy managers. I'm not completely on my, what did I say, like over 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns or something wild like that. Like that might have been a little aggressive. I mean, hence the off the rails segment. But just given the fact that he was like out there for like earning like over 20% of the team's targets just this past week, and from an air yard standpoint, like he should at least like be like the team's wide receiver 1 from a functionality standpoint. It's hard to see like him, like especially with Spencer Rattler, like having like fewer options like in the passing game to hit. It becomes harder for him to be able to produce. So I think opportunity will be there for Means, but I mean the results might not reflect that. Like just given the fact that this passing game is just going to be so depleted.
Mason Tipton is another name you guys are going to need to learn, because he will be out there as well. Otherwise, yeah, maybe Jawan Johnson could emerge as the number 1. Although, as Dwain noted in yesterday's podcast, his increase in route rate has coincided with Taysom Hill being out of action. Taysom has been limited so far. So maybe Jawan can get things going. But again, tough Broncos secondary, even if we do see Pat Surtain the second have to miss this game as well with that concussion. Dwain, another big injury is with the Arizona Cardinals, number 4 overall pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. with a concussion. Now, in a past life, or just even last year, I should say, I would expect Marvin to be able to play after having that concussion on Sunday, not playing this week until Monday night. We got another MNF doubleheader. Look forward to that. But seeing how things have gone for Malik Neighbors and a couple of these other players, it does seem more doubtful than I think it would have been again in past years. So if we don't see Marv out there, Dwain, how high are you willing to rank guys like Michael Wilson and our one true short king, Greg Dortch?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest winner will be Trey McBride because he's the other really good player on the team. We saw a 26% target share last weekend from him. This guy is one of the best tight ends in the NFL right now, so he's locked into top 3. But I mean, it's actually going to move him up in the flex ranks too. Like there's wide receivers I would start. I mean, I would start Trey McBride over a lot of wide receivers this weekend. But yeah, if we're looking at the wide receivers, I think Michael Wilson is the next guy up, Ian, and he's shown a little bit. Like so, if you looked at week 3, he had a 28% target share. Week 4, 32% target share. Week 5, 21%. Still setting at an 18 on the season, so he's kind of been up and down, really hard to trust. He's not like an alpha type, but could he give us like a Darius Slayton kind of performance? It feels pretty similar, right? I mean, Darius Slayton has shown us that he can have these boom kind of games, plays in a passing offense where we're hoping to get like 225 yards passing. Unfortunately, that's where we're at with Kyler. We are hoping for 225 yards right now. So assuming Kyler can see over the offensive line and actually see Michael Wilson, I do think that there is a chance that he comes through as a boom bust wide receiver 4. If he hits that boom for you, you might get a wide receiver 2 performance, but it's hard to be like uber confident in it, Ian. I could also see him just saying, let's just feed Trey McBride. We don't like our matchups on the outside, and it could be a struggle, but I'll be moving him into that boom bust wide receiver 4 range for Michael Wilson.
Certainly not a layup matchup against a Chargers defense that is indeed number 1 in the NFL in fewest points per game allowed. So tougher test, but when they're not at 100%, we shall see. Chris, last one here. We do have the Packers dealing with an injury to Dontavian Wicks. Played all of 10 snaps last week until he suffered a shoulder injury. So you do look at this Packers offense, man, going up in a potential shootout against C.J. Stroud and company. Again, we love Jordan Love. We love the upside of this group. It's usually just a matter of trying to figure out who's going to be playing enough. And for at least 1 week, man, it seems like we finally have this wide receiver trio condensed between Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs.
Right, and don't forget that Jaden Reed also left the field for quite a bit of time with an ankle injury. We'll see what from practice report standpoint, if he'll wind up being limited at any point throughout this week. So it might be condensed even further than that. But I think at least for me, Christian Watson, I think he played fairly well coming back off of his ankle injury in his first game back. I know Romeo Doubs is going to be the one of the hotter waiver wire pickups for most folks. If you wound up dropping him when he took his ball and went home the previous week and then decided to come back for week 6. I understand with the 2 touchdowns, you'd want to try and target him for this week. But I mean, Christian Watson, higher targets per route run rate, higher air yard share, the same number of targets. I mean, also worked into the slot a bit as well. So it's I'm not as, I don't know, I can't predict that Jordan Love is going to say, F it, Romeo Doubs is down there and then connect with him for a couple of touchdowns on a week-to-week basis. So if I'm going to get at least some of the more layup type targets on a week-to-week basis for a guy from Christian Watson, I think I'd rather hang my hat on Watson from at least on this in their upcoming matchup for this week. But I get if you need some of that explosives, Doubs is going to be that guy for Love.
Doubs and Watson guys that are between our wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 rankings among our list of consensus so-called experts. So make sure you check out those ranks over there at FantasyLife.com. Last point here, Dwain, because I know you've had a lot of thoughts about Tucker Kraft. I'm not going to lie, you're not wrong. But when I hear you kind of talking about him and the lack of these juicy plays, it kind of reminds me of myself incorrectly slandering Dalton Schultz, over these past seasons. Couldn't it just be enough that we have a full-time role in Green Bay and an offense that is now condensed? I hear you. Kraft, watching him, it's not like we're looking at the second coming of Jesus out there. But what tight ends are really popping off the foam anyway, other than your George Kittles and Brock Bowers of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it makes him a low-end tight end 1 historically, or really a borderline tight end 1. My only point has been is that, it's really just the state of tight end that's causing people to get so frothy about Tucker Kraft. And that's pushed him into these conversations where people really are actually preaching that this man is the gospel, Ian. He is going to be the next coming of a George Kittle. And look, he's a nice player. When you watch him run after the catch, it's great. But guys, go turn on the film. The dude is catching the ball without a defender within 10 yards around him all the time. Why? Because it's 3rd and 19 and he's running a flat route, and all the wide receivers you need to cover who are past the sticks or running to the sticks, that's where all the attention of the defense is. And so this guy's just getting the ball and then he gets 13 yards on that play. That's not real yak. That's the defense said, we don't care about you, Tucker Kraft. Then if you look at his long touchdown, 66-yarder, Ian, that was the one he actually caught down the sideline. I see people saying, man, this guy broke multiple tackles. No, He had the angle on one defender. He had the speed to beat him. He just barely shoved him off. And then his wide receiver actually blocked the next tackler. That yes, touched him on his shoelace. But that's not a broken tackle. You guys got to get your stuff together, man, and go watch these players. But I will say this, to your point, Ian, he is a low-end tight end one. I'm not saying Tucker Kraft's never going to be good. He could actually develop into being a really good tight end. Right now, though, he's not earning enough targets. He's in like a 14% targets per route run. That's a low-end tight end 2. He's coming through with the big plays. That is what's actually helped him. And so when I see plays that aren't sustainable, yeah, it makes me want to just say something. Again, your point. We don't have anything else. So fine, you can go start Tucker Kraft. But my point was true last week. And I don't normally call things out after 1 week because any 1 week can go either way on you. You got to look at the bigger sample. But over time, he's going to have plenty of 2.5 point fantasy duds because that's really the player that he is right now. Could he give you those 20-point explosions? Sure, he could still give you those. But I think his explosions are probably more like 10 to 11 points because those were just major gifts that he got on those yak plays.
Now, you guys might be thinking that Dwain and I just couldn't be more at odds, with Tucker Kraft in the ranks. But in reality, he's my tight end 8. He's Dwain's tight end 9. So low-end tight end 1, feel free to get him.
I love these conversations. Oh, my God, I'm so fired up. We have him ranked the same.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys, let's get to another injury that is worth monitoring, I should say. Jaguars' alleged RB1 Travis Etienne was already dealing with the shoulder issue, and now he also has a hamstring that is tentatively expected to keep him out of Sunday's matchup against the Patriots in London. So, Dwain, Tank Bigsby, he's been someone that we've had as a recommended waiver wire stash for weeks at this point. How confident are we in him being a legit top 15, top 16 option? Because the utilization we did see last week with D'Ernest Johnson was admittedly troubling.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people hit the panic mode on Tank Bigsby, and this is what happens when you get the slow buildup behind a player, and then you get that pinnacle performance we saw the week before, and then you get him into your fantasy lineup. Even though we had him as a boom bust running back 3, guys, boom bust. Because why? He doesn't have a full-time role, and if he doesn't get the big play, doesn't score the touchdown, he's going to come up empty in your fantasy box score. That's just the life you lead when you want to play someone like Tank Bigsby. But now we've got Travis Etienne out of the picture. But people are also panicking because what you talked about, Ian, D'Ernest Johnson. So I think we learned a few things in that game. And it's not that D'Ernest Johnson is going to split this backfield with Tank Bigsby. It's that if they get into a blowout loss scenario, their 2-minute offense back is D'Ernest Johnson. The question is, do you really think the Jaguars are going to be in a blowout loss scenario against the New England Patriots this weekend? It's possible because we do have Drake May. We're not playing Jacoby Brissett and that madness anymore. So, I guess it could happen. But in most runouts of this game, I think we have a close game or a game where the Jaguars are actually the team that's winning. And that's really good for a guy like Tank Bigsby. I've got him projected this weekend with Travis Etienne out, who's week to week. I'm assuming Etienne's not playing. When I hear week to week, we'll see if we get a Michael Pittman Undertaker moment later this weekend, and we'll adjust. But right now, I've got 59% of the rushing attempts going to Tank Bigsby, 33% to D'Ernest Johnson. If you look at the raw box scores, you would be thinking those are going to be more evenly split. I still think Tank Bigsby is the guy they want to unleash Ian on the early downs. I think he's going to get most of that work. I do think that D'Ernest Johnson will play on long down and distance. I think D'Ernest Johnson will get the 2-minute offense at the end of the halves. And so it's going to be really, that kind of a split. So D'Ernest Johnson, I've got a 33% of the rushing attempts, 59% to Tank Bigsby. If you look at just our projections, which are up over on FantasyLife.com, he comes in a half PPR setting just on projections alone as the running back 24 for this weekend. And I've got him ranked right now in the low end, or I think I've got him mid-range running back 3. Ian, you have it up. You probably can see where I've got him right now. We'll be tweaking 24. That, but I think he's a 24. Okay, so I have him right where I have the projection. Look at me. Wow. How did I do that? So low-end running back 2. That's what the projections and the ranks say. Some might call that, Ian, a borderline running back 2.
I went mid-tier, Dwain. I got him RB16. I think we're being a little bit prisoners of the moment. Yeah,
I don't mind. I don't mind it. Look, again, it just comes down. You and I have had this conversation. The game script could go sideways on him. Right. So we're trying to project all these ranges of outcomes. So anytime you have a player like that, like I always lean a little bit more. Okay, you can call me a coward. I get a little more conservative on those types of players because I'm like, I know there's a chance I'm going to have somebody screaming at me in my DMs that so-and-so gave them 3 points because the game script went a certain way. And maybe I shouldn't be a slave to that, Hartitz.
I'm just looking at some of the other guys that, right now, some of the other rankers do have ahead of him. And it's like Kareem Hunt versus the 49ers. Okay. Or do we really expect the Chiefs to score that many more points potentially than the Jaguars? Najee Harris versus the Jets. I mean, he's splitting that backfield as well. Hasn't exactly been good for most of the year. Did have a great, week 6 against the Raiders. Devon Achane still in this offense without Tua. Do we really want to start him over Tank Bigsby when their touches are probably going to be the same? It's a close call, Chris, but right now I think I'm siding with Tank Bigsby, aka the most efficient running back in the NFL this year.
Which is kind of wild to think, but I understand it. I mean, from a rush yards over expected standpoint, I think Tank Bigsby has been up there amongst most of the rushers in the league. And going against the Patriots, I mean, they have allowed a lot of prominent rushers, or even just guys that we wouldn't consider to be high end RBs to get over on them. I mean, Dameon Pierce looked like the second coming of Adrian Peterson just this past week, just being able to scoot down the middle of the field. So I think in the last 4 of the 6 matchups against the Patriots, each offensive line has gone over their average in terms of adjusted yards before contact, per attempt. So if this at least bodes well, for the Jacksonville Jaguars and their offensive line, which hasn't played at least supremely well, so far to date, I mean, at least we should allow a guy like Tank Bigsby to get it, build up that head of steam. And if he is going to be more of the early down grinder, I mean, at least provide him with some of those rushing lanes that will allow him to at least produce well in the box score. And then, to Dwayne's point, Dearness Johnson, he'll be out there on third downs. He'll be out there in 2 minutes type situations. But from a rush yard standpoint, I think at least this week 7 matchup grades out as the better one for Bigsby. So I would put him more in I'd say mid tier. I'll go with you on this one, Ian. I'll say mid tier is where I'd put him, at least as of right now. But I get it. I'm also being a kind of a prisoner to the moment after seeing how well other teams have performed against the Patriots rush defense.
Chris is not kidding with that latter point. Last week saw Mixon and Dameon Pierce combined for 178 rushing yards. Jordan Mason had a $123. The Dolphins running backs combined for 160. Really has not been that typical, highly effective Patriots run defense that we are used to. Guys, more injury questions on the way. Spoiler, it is week 7 after all. But first, a quick word to our friends over at DraftKings. A chill in the air, leaves falling to the ground, and football every weekend. That is what fall is all about. You can make each weekend even more exciting by getting into the action with our partners at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. And right now, all new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $200 in bonus bets. All you got to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using our promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. Again, that is $200 in bonus bets instantly, and you can stay in on the action. Use your $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. After all, DraftKings is the place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Again, new customers use our promo code FANTASYLIFE and bet just $5 on any wager to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FANTASYLIFE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, guys, laundry list of running back injuries, and I mean it. There's 10 or 12 actually very important issues out there that we need to monitor. So I broke down each of them in a couple sentences in my Week 7 manifesto. Feel free to check that out for free at FantasyLife.com. But right now, going to run through them in a bit of a rapid fire format. So Dwayne, starting with you, what do you make of this 49ers backfield if Jordan Mason does miss time with that shoulder injury?
I think it's going to be a committee. Isaac Guerendo obviously has that long speed that we did see at the Underwear Olympics. He ran really fast, and he's big. But it was also a great block by the 49ers offensive lineman, completely walling off the defender to the inside, and Guerendo hit that 73-yarder, Ian, to which you noted, he took a dive at the end of that. Maybe Witherspoon was at least hustling, but that might have been a touchdown if he keeps his foot on the gas. So I think most people remember that. But the passing down role did not go to Isaac Guerendo. And then we were also getting more of a rotation. So I think we're really going to see a split backfield here. If I had to pick, I would go with Guerendo as the guy that I would want to play. Ian, I know you're going to be going in behind me and looking at some of the bids I put in on our teams. And Guerendo is one of the names. It was actually out there in sicko leagues. So I've got some money, not going to say how much because you guys can't know that because you might be in the league with us. And so I'm trying to get in. But the tough part, Ian, is let's say we have no Jordan Mason and we know that for sure. I'm still going to have a hard time getting Guerrero out of that low end RB2 territory, borderline running back 2 territory. We're going to have a lot of names bunched there together, depending on how these injury reports work out. But you do know that you've got the chance to, to hit a long run. He's a very explosive player, and we like the 49ers offense. So there's going to be a lot of lineups that he can be in out there.
Annoying part about this 49ers backfield when CMC is not in it is they're kind of content using their running backs on more like 80% of the snaps because they have Deebo Samuel, they have Kyle Juszczyk. So again, Guerrero is the recommended play, but going to see some more Patrick Taylor than we would prefer. I am with you, Dwain, more of a low-end RB2 as opposed to someone who needs to be in starting lineups. Chris, another situation that we did actually already get one full game of evidence. We have Rachaad White dealing with that foot injury for the Buccaneers. Yes, Bucky Irving was the lead back, but also, yes, Sean Tucker made the most out of his opportunities. Who do you prefer ahead of this week's matchup against the, why can I not freaking find it? The Ravens on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, between the two of them, just because the Ravens, their rush defense has been a bit more stout than their pass defense. I mean, I would lend it, that matchup lends itself a bit more to the pass game usage. And it was Sean Tucker. I mean, over 5 yards per route run. Like, that's the highest mark that any of the running backs so far have earned in a single game so far. That's more than Rachaad White. And that's been kind of the usage that we wanted to hang our hats on from White. Like, we knew coming into the season that he wasn't going to be one of the more efficient running backs in the league. He showcased all that last year. I mean, back into league, bottom 3 in terms of rush yards over expectation. And that's been the case throughout most of this season as well. So if we're already looking at a matchup that's going to be a bit tougher for the running game, and this has also been an offense that's been more predicated on the pass game anyway. I mean, Liam Cohen has been orchestrating a well-efficient, and a very good offense with Baker Mayfield, hitting whether it's Chris Godwin, whether it's Mike Evans, if he's not up against Marshawn Lattimore, or even getting Cade Naughton into the mix as well. So I lean, if we're assuming that White is going to be out again this week, I mean, I'll give the nod towards Sean Tucker. Even Todd Bowles after this past week acknowledging the fact that, I mean, they should be getting Tucker a bit more involved as they move forward. So if it is down to a 2-man committee just for week 7, I'll give the nod towards Tucker. But once White gets back, man, I don't know how this 3-headed monster is going to look like. But if it's just 2 guys, I'll give it to Tucker.
I go the opposite.
Dwain, you in agreement
on this one?
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, I go Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, before the last drive of the game, which was a complete washout, had 70% of the snaps, had 70% of the routes. So, he was really the guy that was out there on passing downs. Now, to Chris's point, Sean Tucker looked amazing when they got him the ball. I mean, this dude is a big running back. He's got speed. He's got moves. He's got everything you want. But I think, and I just kind of take it in phases, and I could be wrong about this, but I think Sean Tucker's got to take another step to show me that the Bucs are actually going to put him on the field even 50% of the time to get him even with Bucky Irving. So I'm with Chris on the fact that Sean Tucker looked great in everything he did. I started him last week, Chris, and Scott Fishbowl, and the only way I did it, I went and looked at teams that are actually kicking off to running backs. And I saw the matchup and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to put Sean Tucker in for the kick return yards. I didn't know I was going to get a bonus nearly 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on top of that. Right. Dude scored 50 fantasy points. So people believe me are going to look for Sean Tucker on the waiver wire, and Scott Fishbowl are like, this dumb Dwain McFarland had him and started him last week. I got really lucky on that. But I am with you. He looks really good, dude. He looks great. But right now, that's just too much for me to pass up on Bucky Irving. 70% of the snaps before the blowout final drive.
I have Bucky Irving as my RB19 right now in the ranks, assuming Rachaad White is out. So hardly someone that, again, needs to be in your RB1 slot. But it is a good point, again, about that Ravens defense, guys. Second fewest rushing yards allowed to opposing RBs this year. 9th most receiving yards, though. So it should be a bit of a pass funnel situation. Very excited for that Sunday night shootout. So, again, way more situations you guys need to monitor. Dwain, last one I'm going to throw to you, though, is the Vikings with this Aaron Jones hip injury. Certainly seems like he's more at risk of potentially missing this game after they felt the need to trade for Cam Akers. And to be clear, Kevin O'Connell did call him week to week during their bye.
Yeah, and that's the key, putting those two pieces of information together, because God knows we can't trust any sort of other report. He has been listed as week to week. That quite often means players missing 2 and 3 games. We'll watch the practice reports to get, some more evidence. But the signing of Cam Akers, man, I'm leaning towards this is going to be a Ty Chandler game. Now, the Lions have been pretty tough against the run. They're kind of like what Chris just talked about with the Ravens. But Ty Chandler is a guy that can get a little bit involved in the pass game. We know we have a potential shootout environment. This is going to be an amazing game. The Vikings versus the freaking Lions, NFC North. Very excited about this contest. So Ty Chandler, one last name I will throw out super quickly. Got to keep an eye on Brian Robinson Jr. If he misses another game and we get Austin Eckler going full against the Carolina Panthers, oh my God. Austin Eckler might be a borderline running back one this weekend.
No, I have him RB7, Dwayne.
Okay. So, and I can't disagree with it because last week we did see them shift fully to Eckler. They did not give McNichols the same role they had the week before. So, yeah, this could be a vintage Austin Eckler weekend, and you freaking love to see it.
Love that call. Again, plenty of other injuries to get through. We do have Nick Chubb potentially returning for the Browns with Jerome Ford missing time with the hamstring. Keep an eye on Devon Achane still trying to clear concussion protocol. Will be good news for Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright if not. And by the way, guys, Jalen Wright still owned in under 10% of a lot of these leagues. Hey, he is playing with two running backs we've hardly seen stay healthy. Tua could be back as soon as next week. And Wright really has looked good with his opportunities if you've been sick enough to watch against some of these Dolphins games over the past few weeks. Also, obviously, with the Bills, Ray Davis is the man behind James Cook. With the Giants, Tyron Tracy behind Devin Singletary. Cardinals, we would expect Trey Benson to be the guy there, but it's a bit more of a Tank Bigsby-esque situation with the presence of Amari DiMercato on passing downs. Titans should get a week of Tony Pollard as the workhorse running back with Tajay Spears dealing with a hamstring injury. We'll see if Antonio Gibson gets another 3-down role or Ramondre Stevenson banged up. And then also, we hopefully will get Jonathan Taylor back. He was doing an interview with the NFL Network alleged insiders last night, and when asked if he should be back in your fantasy lineup on Sunday, JT said, I'm definitely feeling better this week. So again, not exactly a 100% yes, but should be about time for JT to get back. Guys, we just got another minute or two, so I just want to take a second to kind of shout out some running backs that are not on the cover of waiver wire articles this week, but while everyone is focusing on some of the players we just mentioned, maybe you can get these lesser owned guys on your bench before it really matters, and all of a sudden they are the ones everyone's focusing on. So Dwayne, Dameon Pierce, someone who we saw really step up behind Joe Mixon in their first game back. I mentioned Jalen Wright in that Dolphins backfield that should have some more upside soon. And also shout out Emmanuel Wilson. I understand Marshawn Lloyd is now eligible to come off IR, but really haven't gotten any updates from it. Those are three guys that, again, are only rostered in 12% or less of Yahoo leagues at the moment. And Dwayne, I think each is one injury away from pretty much being in the majority of fantasy lineups.
Yeah, I think there's one more you can throw in there, and that's Trey Benson. With a player like James Conner actually dealing with an ankle injury right now. We haven't gotten any reports out of it, but was getting it taped up last week. Had a fumble. We don't know for sure if James Conner got benched due to the fumble in the game script or if it was due to his injury, some combination of things. But I would say that those players are definitely in play. And the guy that Chris mentioned, and Sean Tucker, I realize that if Rachaad White's involved, he looks like a three-headed backfield, but only rostered right now in 13% of Yahoo leagues. So yeah, I think there's a lot of names. I love the Dameon Pierce call because, man, Mixon up there in age, already dealing with an injury. We love the Houston Texans offense. Pierce looked pretty good last week and was the clear-cut number 2. To your point, Agumbawale did a little bit of the passing down work, but I really love the Pierce call.
And I know some of you out there listening to us rolling your eyes. Are we really doing this Dame Pierce thing again? Guys, just remove everything you know about him. Look at the role in that offense. And yes, he would be someone that would be in that volume-based RB2 conversation, a la the Trey Sermons and Antonio Gibsons of the world, who we have reluctantly, again, had to trust over these past few weeks. So, guys, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Life Show. Myself, Dwayne, and Matthew Freeman will be back tomorrow going through some nitty-gritty rankings questions. But until then, have a great rest of your day and get after those waiver wires. So for Chris, for Dwayne, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.